In our headlines on this Monday afternoon, October 30th, here in South Korea. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says the country's military campaign against Hamas has entered a second stage, one that looks to be long and difficult, but that Israel is prepared for it. Meanwhile, President Yoon says his recent state visits to Saudi Arabia and Qatar respectively will boost the Korean economy, given the 63 MOUs and bilateral deals recently sealed worth some $20 billion. And Korea notes a somber memorial this past Sunday, that is October 29th, to mark 1 year since the shocking crowd crush in Itaewon here in Seoul, where 159 lives were lost. We start on a sobering note today. Korea's gross national income falls short of that of its group of 7 counterparts amid a weakening national currency and a slowing economy. Our Moon Hye-ryun explains.
The gap between South Korea's gross national income and that of G7 countries is growing bigger on the back of the weakening Korean won and slow economic growth. According to data released by the Bank of Korea on Monday, the country's gross national income per capita by the World Bank's latest measurements for 2022 came to $35,990. GNI per capita is an important economic metric as it represents national income. Of the G7 countries, the top 7 economies in the world, Italy had the lowest GNI per capita at just under $37,000. But this is still over $1,700 more than South Korea. Back in 2020, South Korea's GNI per capita ranked above Italy's by $610, the first time in history that the country had recorded such a feat. However, this was temporary as Italy recorded a 9% decline in economic growth due to the effects of COVID-19. The following year, in 2021, Italy's GNI per capita rose by over $1,000. When compared to the United States, which ranks first among G7 countries in terms of GNI per capita, the gap widened with the US figure at around $40,000. The growing gap has been attributed to the weakening Korean won as well as differences in economic growth. According to the Bank of Korea's economic statistics system, the Korean won depreciated by around 13% in 2022 compared to 2021, when comparing the average $1 exchange rates throughout the year. While the euro, which is used in Italy, also fell against the greenback, the average euro-dollar exchange rate throughout 2022 was around 11% lower than the previous year, showing that the decline of its currency was weaker than that of the Korean won. As for economic growth, Italy's gross domestic product grew by 3.7% last year. This is more than 1 percentage point higher than South Korea's GDP for the same period, which was recorded at 2.6%. Whether South Korea can overtake Italy once again this year is dependent on GDP growth, as the exchange rate is said to be unlikely to recover within the next few months. The South Korean government has maintained its growth projection of 1.4% for the year, while Italy has reduced its outlook from 1% to 0.8%. Moon Hye-ryun, Arirang News.
President Yoon says his recent state visits to Saudi Arabia and Qatar will boost the Korean economy. Speaking at a cabinet meeting on this Monday, the president underscored the 63 MOUs and bilateral agreements inked in the Middle East worth some $20 billion that he believes will create jobs across various industries. On the domestic front, President Yoon spoke of plans to send the government's pension reform agenda to the National Assembly in the near future and urged lawmakers to pass bills related to people's livelihoods during their current regular session. Come Tuesday, the president will share the government's fiscal plan for the year 2024. And back on Sunday, President Yoon placed priority on public safety, pledging to do his best to this end while sharing his sorrow in memory of the young lives lost in Itaewon last year when Halloween celebrations there turned into a deadly crowd crush. He was speaking at a church service here in Seoul, marking a year since that fateful day. Do take a listen.
오늘은 제가 살면서 가장 큰 슬픔을 가진 날입니다. 대한민국 국민 모두가 저와 같은 마음일 것입니다. 불의의 사고로 돌아가신 분들의 명복을 빕니다.
He also claimed that it was the duty of Koreans to make the world a better place where all are ensured safety. He further vowed greater effort by the government to guarantee public safety in light of this painful loss. Indeed, Korea marked a rather somber memorial this past Sunday, which marked exactly a year since the shocking crowd crush in Itaewon here in capital Seoul. My colleague Song Yoo-jin has this report.
October 29th, 2022. Itaewon, a popular nightlife spot in Seoul, witnessed an unimaginable tragedy. A crowd crush resulted in the loss of 159 lives. 1 year later, we reflect on the question of what's changed. The absence of adequate crowd control measures has been pinpointed as a major factor. This year, director-level personnel from the Interior Ministry, alongside firefighters and police officers, are being deployed to areas expected to see overcrowding both before and after Halloween. Seoul City government is installing around 8,000 AI-enabled closed-circuit TV cameras. These cameras can detect and alert authorities to dangerous crowding. But there are still challenges.
There's now an emphasis on local governments to manage events that do not have organizers like the Itaewon Halloween festivities, but it's unclear whether every region has enough personnel and resources to do that.
The impact of tragedy has been psychological, too. Over 7,000 individuals have sought counseling, mostly the general public, after being exposed to unfiltered graphic images and videos of the accident online.
Trauma can resurface any time in the future. If you need help, you can access free treatment programs at national and regional trauma centers anytime. Local mental health and welfare centers also offer various counseling and programs related to mental health.
Back in Itaewon, instead of the customary Halloween festivities, the streets are calm, with some streets posting signs paying tribute to the victims. So this is the exact spot where the deadly crowd crush happened last year, and now, as you can see, it's now a place where people will be able to forever remember those who lost their lives on the night of October 29th, 2022. Messages of condolences fill the walls. People continue to stream in to pay their respects. They hope something like this will never happen again.
And whenever I walk down here, I always pause and stop and I pray.
Avoiding large gatherings is just not realistic, so I think it's absolutely crucial to have public servants, firefighters, and police personnel involved in crowd control.
Since the accident, I've experienced some trauma when it comes to large crowd gatherings. Nonetheless, I believe that people heal through one another. My wish is for these interactions to take place in areas that are comfortable and safe.
October 29th, 2022 will remain etched in the memory. Those who are lost will be remembered by those endeavoring for a safer future. Song Yoo-jin, Arirang News.
In other news, Seoul and Washington are kicking off a large-scale aerial exercise this week. According to Seoul's Air Force, the 5-day Vigilant Defense 24 begins today, that is Monday, and includes Korea's F-35A fighter jets and tanker transport aircraft, as well as US F-35A and F-35B fighter jets. The allies are seeking to bolster their joint defense posture through airborne alert interdiction and close support missions. North Korea has called these joint air drills rehearsals for invasion and often resorted to provocations in protest. North Korean authorities rescued a stranded North Korean vessel drifting in waters near the northern limit line in the East Sea hours after the South Korean military spotted it on Sunday afternoon. According to the Joint Chiefs of Staff on Sunday, a maritime patrol responded to a rescue request from an unknown vessel stranded 3 kilometers north of the NLL before confirming the vessel was North Korean. Officials say the vessel had been adrift for 10 days and that those on board had requested food and water and that they wished to return north. Food and water were provided on humanitarian grounds before a message was sent to North Korea through the United Nations Command and other communication channels. Israel says its military campaign against the Palestinian militant group Hamas has entered a fresh stage, one that will be, quote, long and difficult. Our Shin Se-byuk has the latest.
The Israeli military continued its ground operations in Gaza throughout Sunday. The Israel Defense Forces said it destroyed Hamas anti-tank positions and killed several gunmen on the Gaza coast and at the Erez border crossing. Since it expanded its ground operations in Gaza on Friday night, the IDF has targeted Hamas operatives and positions hitting hundreds of underground tunnels and bunkers. As the war rages, Israel's military in a televised briefing on Sunday urged Palestinians in Gaza to evacuate northern regions, calling it urgent.
Over the last 2 weeks, we have been calling on residents of the northern Gaza Strip and Gaza City to relocate southward temporarily. We are today emphasizing that this is an urgent call.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu also said the war against Hamas has now entered a second stage and warned it would be a tough one.
The war inside the Gaza Strip will be long and difficult, and we are ready for it.
There have been suggestions that the IDF is now using siege tactics on Hamas. According to The Economist on Sunday, the IDF has now shifted its strategy to an encirclement tactic and slower campaign. This comes according to the report as the Israeli military reportedly set up a base in Gaza on Friday, unlike in previous operations where they withdrew from the Strip overnight. This way, Israel's invasion of Gaza would be more gradual, which could help it avoid inflicting mass civilian casualties. The British publication also highlighted that the strategic shift aims to deplete essential supplies like fuel and food stored in Hamas' underground tunnels and bunkers. Citing a high-ranking Israeli official, The Economist said that this ground operation could take up to a year. Shin Se-byuk, Arirang News.
And civilians in Gaza continue to bear the brutal brunt of the armed conflict between Israel and Hamas, while Iran, for its part, claims Israeli forces have crossed a red line in the region. Our Lee Sing-jae reports.
The death toll in Gaza has surpassed 8,000 since armed conflict began between Israel and Hamas on October 7th. According to Gaza's health ministry, the number of injured as a result of Israeli airstrikes is also approaching 20,000. The ministry added that the death toll may actually be much higher, with many people still trapped under rubble. As rescue teams continue their search and rescue operations, a total of 1,800 people are reportedly missing, with 1,000 of them being children. With Israel continuing air raids in Gaza, Iranian President Ibrahim Raisi said Sunday that Israel has crossed a red line in Gaza, which may force everyone to take action, hinting at the possibility Tehran getting involved in the conflict. Taking to social media, President Raisi said the U.S. told Iran not to do anything, but Washington continues to give widespread support to Israel. Meanwhile, the U.S. had initially questioned Iran's involvement in the October 7th attacks. U.S. intelligence suggested that Iranian officials were also surprised by Hamas's attack and that Tehran was not directly involved in its planning, resourcing, or approval. Meanwhile, during a visit to Nepal, UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres called for the protection of all civilians in Gaza. While Guterres condemned the October 7th attacks by Hamas, he expressed regret that Israel has intensified its military operations instead of a humanitarian pause supported by the international community. He also urged those with responsibility to step back from the brink and called the situation in Gaza a humanitarian catastrophe. Guterres visited the country to extend condolences to the families of 10 Nepalese students killed by Hamas in southern Israel on October 7th. Lee Sing-jae, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, over in the U.S., a number of home appliances by LG Electronics have been named as the highest-ranking products this year. According to Consumer Reports, the LG OLED Evo ranked top among TVs for its high picture quality, including razor-sharp details. In fact, it has been praised as a TV with no flaws. Two of LG's washing machines also stood as the best out of this year's cleaning and home appliances, while its induction cooker was selected as the most necessary cookware. Researchers here are promising greater mobility for those in wheelchairs. They've made a wheelchair that can climb stairs. Our Yoon tells us how.
This electric wheelchair travels on the road, but once it reaches a step in front of a convenience store, it stops. Without assistance, access for this wheelchair is restricted. But local researchers have developed this strange-looking wheelchair that isn't stopped by stairs. It has smaller wheels that grip onto the surface of the stairs and move up and down them with stability.
It's the unique step-shaped wheel structure that helps the chair remain vertical relative to the ground. So a great advantage is its high stability against the risk of slipping.
Robotics technology has been incorporated into this new wheelchair, which also has a function that allows the user to change positions. It can maneuver to help the user to a standing position and can even move in that position, allowing further mobility. This helps tackle some of the health issues like poor blood circulation and the development of bed sores among wheelchair users.
Sitting in one position for a long period increases the risk of developing bed sores. So we need to stimulate blood circulation periodically, and this device provides that function.
The development of such new wheelchairs with the latest robotics technology means a new way for those with physical disabilities to have greater access to more general facilities. 이은진, Arirang News.
The number of farms with confirmed cases of lumpy skin disease stands at 61 as of Sunday. The latest farm is located in Muan, Jeollanam-do province, marking the region's first case. A total of 4,107 cows have been culled or are being culled at infected farms. The outbreak has thus expanded to 7 cities and provinces nationwide, following the first case more than a week ago. Authorities have issued an emergency vaccination order for all cattle. The shades of autumn are in full display here in Korea, and for those of you who have yet to indulge in the seasonal sights, our Choi Soo-hyung was out and about. Do take a look.
The mountains turning yellow and red means that autumn is here. In South Korea, pink foliage occurs when over 80% of the mountain's trees change color. It usually starts on Seoraksan Mountain in Gangwon-do province, east of the capital Seoul and the country's coldest region. From late October this year, famous fall foliage attractions across the country are set to welcome visitors.
The mountains near Seoul have already reached their peak autumn leaves, and mountains further south like Gaedongsan and Naejangsan are expected to have their peak fall foliage by early November.
One nearby location from Seoul is Yongmunsan Mountain in Yangpyeong-gun County, Gyeonggi-do Province, which boasts diverse tree species that determine the colors, making it a great choice for an autumn picnic. In particular, the maple trees along the track to Yongmun Temple. Its fall foliage started 9 days ago and has now reached its peak, displaying a variety of colors and beautiful landscapes.
It was my first time going on an autumn foliage trip this year, and the timing was just perfect. The autumn leaves had beautiful and vibrant colors, and when I climbed up the hill, seeing this, it made me feel peaceful and relaxed to relieve lots of the stress.
According to the Korea Forest Service, the leaf-changing season has been getting about 0.33 days later each year since 2009, likely due to rising temperatures from July to September. This year's peak fall foliage arrived 4 to 5 days later than usual, and these colorful leaves will stay for around a week to 10 days. People can still enjoy other parts of South Korea if they miss the northern and central mountain attractions. Those who want to explore autumn colors should pack their bags and have their calendars handy to start planning. The Forest Service said this year's fall foliage may be later, but due to temperature variations, it's expected to be more vibrant. Choi Soo-hyung, Arirang News.
Let's take a look at what's going on in the world now. In the U.S., a shooting in the Florida city of Tampa early on Sunday morning local time has left 2 dead and 16 hospitalized. The gunshots came during a street fight between 2 groups amid a crowd of hundreds of people leaving bars and nightclubs in Tampa's Ybor City neighborhood just before 3 a.m. over the Halloween weekend. Police initially reported a total of 18 casualties, which has been confirmed by Tampa Police Chief Lee Berko as 2 deaths and 16 injuries. Berko also stated that a 22-year-old suspect has been arrested and charged with second-degree murder. In Kazakhstan, the death toll from a mine fire on Saturday has increased to 45. The fire at the Kostenko coal mine appears to be from a methane blast and was more deadly than initially reported. On Saturday, the local office of the steelmaker ArcelorMittal, which operated the mine in Kazakhstan's Karaganda region, stated that 206 out of the 252 people had been evacuated. Emergency teams at the mine are still searching for one remaining miner who may have been underground. In world sports, 22-year-old tennis player Italian Yannick Sinner won the Vienna Open on Saturday, defeating Russian Daniil Medvedev for the second time this month in an ATP 500 final. World number 4 on the ATP Live rankings, the young Italian managed to get the upper hand in a 3-hour match against the world number 3 Medvedev. Just 3 weeks ago, Sinner had beaten the 27-year-old Medvedev for the first time in 7 attempts to win the China Open in Beijing. The Italian has now won 10 titles, 4 of them in 2023. American actor Matthew Perry, famous for his role as Chandler in the TV series Friends, has passed away at the age 54. The Emmy-nominated actor was found dead at his Los Angeles home on Saturday. The cause of death has been cited as an apparent drowning. He is best known for his role in the sitcom Friends, which ran from 1994 to 2004, winning an Emmy Award in 2002 for Best Comedy Series. Perry was publicly open about his struggle with addiction to alcohol and drugs, which he mentions in his 2022 memoirs. Kim Seong, Arirang News.
Good afternoon. Enchanting autumn colors in central areas are in full swing. And over the weekend, our beloved leaf peeping spots were packed with visitors. Southern parts of the country will also see autumn colors expanding this week. In fact, we will be seeing much warmer than seasonal temperatures throughout the week. We are having big gaps in readings today, which will help to develop autumn colors to become even more vibrant. But swings in inland areas could be nearly 20 degrees Celsius in some parts of the country, so please do dress accordingly. Temperatures are similar to yesterday in most parts of the country under bright sunshine nationwide. Seoul and Daejeon sees highs of 21 degrees Celsius. Gyeongju and Jeju will be topping out at 23 degrees Celsius. Sunny skies will dominate most places this week, except in the capital and west of Gangwon-do, with some rain in the forecast in the midweek. Then next week looks to be much colder, so let's make the most of the warmth while you can. That's Korea for you, and here's a look at the international weather conditions. And those are the headlines at the SAR here in Korea. We have our panel session coming up right after this break, so do stay with us. Thank you for now.